हरे कृष्णा, सबको मेरा प्रणाम।
प्रणाम प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्णा, हम सबको मेरा भी प्रणाम। Hare Krishna.
Ananta Shesha Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Very well.
Hare Krishna.
Vishnu.
Panchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat
Hare
Pranam.
Krishna. I think now slowly devotees are joining, Prabhuji. So I think I can start your introduction, right?
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisance to all devotees. Today we have with us His Grace Krishna Keshav Prabhu. I would like to give a brief introduction about Krishna Keshav Prabhu. Krishna Keshav Prabhu is basically he's from Vaishnav family. He's born into a Vaishnav family who are living in Tanzania, and later on they shifted to UK, London. So Prabhuji has been serving in Bhaktivedanta manner, so teaching different Bhakti Shastri courses and Veda courses. Also, like Prabhuji was involved in some of the services in IIH, Vrindavan Institute of Higher Education. And also Prabhuji joined Mayapur Institute in the year 2013. And then since then, like Prabhuji has been teaching different courses at Mayapur Institute, like summer youth camp, youth courses and different courses and Bhakti Shastri courses. And last year, Prabhuji was also involved in teaching Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita for a winter Bhakti Shastri course. So, would like to welcome His Great Krishna Keshav Prabhu
Thank you.
for this Ishopanishad session by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna Hare Hare
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama Hare
Rama.
Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Welcome Krishna Keshav Prabhuji.
Thank you, Ananta Shesha Prabhu. Thank you very much. And welcome to you all to this series of the Sri Ishopanishad. I hope that I can do my service properly for you. It's not easy to teach online when there's 60 people online, but we will do our very, very best. And I hope that I can do this with an honest heart and present Srila Prabhupada's teachings in the best light that I possibly can. So just a few things before we begin. We will begin every lesson with the Mangala Charan. And during the course, excuse me, there's a few people joining here. During the course of these sessions, there's some guidelines that I'd like us to follow, if that's all right. You've probably been doing this already, but I'll reiterate it anyway. We can use everybody knows how to use the raise hands facility, Ananta Shesha Prabhu? You all know? Yes?
Yes, Prabhuji, they are loving.
Okay, good.
Thanks.
If we want to contribute or ask questions, we can please use the raise hands facility because this is a big group and otherwise it becomes very messy. And then there's also the chat facility at the bottom of the screen there. You can also put messages out to the wider group if we're discussing things and you don't get a chance to speak. I can sometimes read some of those out. Or you can message me privately during the class if it's something you want to bring up as a side question. Later, for some of the sessions, we will also use the breakout rooms. We may use whiteboards. In fact, we'll probably use a whiteboard today. And if time allows during some sessions, I may separate you out into pairs, unless, of course, you're already sitting together in the same room, which sometimes, of course, people are. I will take questions throughout this series, but only at certain intervals because our time is limited and we have a short time, to get through the material. You may very well find that some of the questions that you want to ask get naturally asked through the progression of the classes, particularly in the early stages of the reading of the Sri Ishopanishad. Sometimes if you ask a question, I may throw it out back into the class because I think it's particularly relevant or interesting, and I think it would stimulate some good group discussion around the topics discussed in the Sri Ishopanishad. And sometimes you may ask a question that I'm not ready to answer. I am only human, and there is a limited capacity within this dome of a head here. And sometimes I may not be ready, and I may want to spend some time, particularly if it's an important question. I may want to take some time to answer that question and ask you to then email me that question or WhatsApp me that question so that I can consider it, and then I will come back to it in the next class so that I can give you a considered and sensible response. The Sri Upanishad is a wonderful piece of scripture, but it's also full of strange contradictions, which are sometimes not easy to discuss. So just bear with me on questions. You can also email me and WhatsApp me throughout this series for anything to do with the course, the material, the closed book questions, any open book essays, or anything you weren't clear on the class. And also do feel free to be completely open and honest with me if something I am saying is not clear, and that can sometimes happen. Then just please feel free, to message me and say, Prabhu, I didn't understand that. And I will do my very best to clarify anything that was not clear. So a few more points before I move on to Sri Upanishad is please stay muted if you're not speaking. Background noise can be really distracting. I see you're all on mute, so I'm very grateful for that. Quite often people aren't muted. Sometimes I will disable my video when I'm speaking because I'm in Mayapur and sometimes the bandwidth where I'm staying is not so good. I don't know, have you had any problems with connectivity? Anantashesh Prabhu? No? Okay. All right. Good.
No, brother.
Okay.
I think some devotees are joining.
Okay.
to
Yes.
accept them.
Thank you. Yes, indeed they are. Yeah. Good. Thank you. I will ask people to read throughout this series, so please do contribute. It's nice also to hear from everybody and not just the same people all the time. I tend to find, especially in online classes, it's always the same people who will contribute to the material. So if you haven't read out loud before, or you haven't said anything or contribute anything during a group discussion, pluck up the courage and do it during this session and have some fun doing this. Don't be nervous. Okay. And finally, I think we get around 21 hours, if I'm not mistaken, under the Shesha Prabhu, to discuss this whole series. And from time to time, as I said, we'll split into groups and we'll do some discussions, etc. We will also have some short film clips throughout this series. I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 minute short film clips which make a difference to the material. And we may also do some skits or audio scripts, which I'll ask you to spend some time considering during a class. We got any poets or songwriters or writers in the group? Anyone? Anyone a budding writer or a poet? I'm looking for somebody who can write good poetry. Okay, no? All right, no problem. Okay, so now...
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do? Who is...
Gopi Priya Mataji.
Gopi Priya Mataji. So Gopi Priya Mataji, where are you? I can't see you. Can you raise your hand so I can see you on the board? Ah, thank you, Mataji. So Mataji, Hare Krishna, I may call on you to help me, particularly towards the end of the series of the Iso Upanishad, because there are some very, very beautiful and moving and very deep prayers at the end of the Iso Upanishad. And there's some interesting work I'd like to do around that. So I may enlist you to help me with something, if that's okay.
Okay, Prabhu. There are actually, Hare Krishna Prabhu, there are many more, but they are just shy to take lead.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Maybe you can give them a gentle nudge and ask them to privately WhatsApp me, and then we can bring out the shyness a little bit by bit. How does that sound? Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, so without further ado then, let me begin. We'll begin, as I said, with the Mangla Charan. So, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so just give me a minute. I'm going to stop my video for a while because on my computer I can't have my video going and my slide sharing at the same time, and I don't know why that's happening. It only just started happening recently. So just bear with me. Okay, so today this is what I would like to cover. Actually, before I go on, just very, very briefly, very quickly, Anantashesh, I think you said that today's lesson would go on until 9 a.m. Is that correct? You're on mute, Prabhu.
As per original schedule, today was the assessment date, but they,
Okay.
Ramakrishna Prabhu, the Yatra coordinator, no, he has postponed the exam.
Okay.
It is
Okay.
on 16th.
Okay.
So if everyone is convenient, if it is okay with them, then we can continue till 10 o'clock.
Okay. All right. Well, how does everybody feel? Would you like to stop at 9 today, or do you want to go on till 10 o'clock? Perhaps I could get just
10 o'clock, no problem. Up to 10, it is okay. Okay, Prabhuji. It's a holiday over here, so up to 10 is okay.
Up to 10 is okay. All right. Okay. So then we'll go up to 10 o'clock today. In which case, then what we will try and do is we will try and, sorry, 1 second, just organize this screen a bit. I hate new computers sometimes. Okay, yes. So what we will try and do then today is cover these various topics that you see on the slides there. I'd like to have a brief discussion about the branches of Vedic knowledge because it's important. We will discuss Srila Prabhupada's introduction to the Sri Isha Upanishad. We will build some context of the whole of the Sri Isha Upanishad. We're going to do this quite a lot, where we're going to start off by reading all the mantras, the English translations, side by side. And I'd like maybe 4 volunteers. No, hang on. If we do 3 mantras each, can I have 5 volunteers to read 3 mantras each? Can I have a show of hands on the board? So Ravindra Prabhu, can you do mantras 1 to 3?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Yes. Yes, Ravindra Prabhu, you can do mantras 1 to 3.
It's only the translation, is it, Prabhu?
Just the translations, yes. And then we will do the Sanskrit mantras as well, but we'll do them later on. Tanuja Mataji, can you do the next 3 mantras, 4, 5, and 6? Shruti Priya, I thought I saw Shruti Priya Mataji, or Hari Priya and Yaduvara. Can you please do mantras 7, 8, and 9? Dinu Damodaran, can you do mantras 10, 11, and 12? And then Dipal Lavingya, did I say that right? Please forgive me if I get the names wrong. Broad English accent. Then can you do mantras 12, 13, and 14? And Krishna Gopal Kumar Prabhu, can you do mantras 16, 17, and 18? That's it. Okay, so that's the order I'd like you to read. And we'll go there in a minute. And the reason we are doing that is so that we can build some context in the text of the Sri Isha Upanishad. There is a story going on there, and reading the mantras just one by one sometimes doesn't bring out the beauty of the whole scripture. And then we'd like to talk about the invocation and then mantra 1. Okay, so then let's begin first by talking about the introduction, and then we'll go on to the reading of the mantras. That seems like a sensible order. So before we go, get into that, I got a couple of questions. Some questions that are going to come up on the slides now. To which group of texts in the Vedic canon does the Sri Ishopanishad belong? Anyone?
Upanishads?
Upanishads. Yes, it belongs to the Upanishads. Anybody know how many Upanishads there are?
118.
100 and?
108.
108. Good, good. And then which of the 4 Vedas is the Sri Ishopanishad a part of?
Is it Yajurveda, Prabhuji?
Yajurveda. Okay, good. And what is the Yajurveda about?
No idea, Prabhuji. No idea.
No idea. Okay, so we'll come to that in a minute. Actually, the word Yaj means worship, and Veda, of course, means knowledge. So you can surmise from that we're talking about the knowledge of worship, within which falls the knowledge of proprietorship. Anyway, we'll come there soon. And then what type of Vedic knowledge is the Sri Ishopanishad?
Shruti.
Shruti, yes. Ishopanishad is part of the Shruti mantras, correct. And why is that important? What's so important about Shruti mantras?
Is directly heard from the Lord.
Directly heard from the Lord. Okay, what else is significant about the fact that if it's directly heard from the Lord?
It's from parampara, is it? Because of that it's important?
That's there, that's definitely there. I mean, it's very important to understand that the knowledge that's being passed down to us from in the Shruti mantras is coming down through the parampara. It's very, very important.
It becomes law.
Sorry?
It becomes law.
It becomes?
Law. Must to follow.
Okay, okay, good. Okay, so
Shruti is the hearing process, Prabhuji.
hearing
Free
process.
from defects.
Shruti is the hearing process.
Shruti is the hearing process, indeed it is. But what's important about something that you hear?
Free from defects, Prabhuji.
It's, Mataji, I didn't hear that. Your voice broke a bit.
Free from defects.
Can you just repeat that one more time?
Free from defects. Free from defects.
Free from defects. Yes, good, good. That's also very good. If it's free from defects, it's heard. It's also unchanged and it's revealed. It's absolute truth. It's passed down through the disciplic succession. That's what I'm actually picking up from you all there. So that's good. So let's move on from this slide here. And let's then talk about, briefly, about Vedic knowledge. You'll find a copy of this same chart, I think on page 103 of your student handbooks. So Vedic knowledge can be broadly divided into 2 categories. You have the Shruti mantras, and then, or you have the Shruti, and then you have the Smriti over here. Originally, there were 6 schools of philosophical and theological thought, and you can see what they were at the bottom of the Smriti side of the diagram, under Vedanta, Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga, etc. These are known as the 6 darshanas. And these 6 schools of thought accept the authority of the Vedas and are also sometimes referred to as the Astika and Nastika schools of thought. Term Astika is the opposite of Nastika and is often used to refer to those groups of people who not only accepted the authority of the Vedas, but also who have faith in God. And of these 6, the one that is important, of course, to us to know about is Vedanta. And Vedanta refers to the theology of the Upanishads. The other 5 darshanas or schools of thought only teach knowledge in a way which interprets it according to their philosophical means or ends. Vedanta, on the other hand, means to teach some knowledge to its primary conclusion. And that's quite important because it means it's not being manipulated in order for somebody else, for it to fit into somebody else's mode of thinking or the mode of nature by which they're influenced. And so this is always very, very important. Another important point, of course, is that Vedanta encompasses 2 different types of schools of thought in itself. And those two schools of thought are Advaita, which is non-dualism, and Dvaita, which is dualism. Why is this important for us to know? Anybody know why it's important? What is the distinction actually then between Dvaita and Advaita? Does anybody know that?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. This
Yes.
Dvaita.
Who is speaking?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. My name is Murali Vadana. Prabhuji, this the Dvaita philosophy given by Madhvacharya. He says the soul and super soul are different. Advaita philosophy given by Shankaracharya. He says soul and super soul can be merged.
Yes, and that's very, very important. Advaita philosophy is that propounded by Shankaracharya, and it's the impersonalist philosophy that we do not follow. We're, of course, members of the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, or Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Parampara. And Madhva here refers to one of Dvaita philosophy's greatest proponents, Srila Madhvacharya, in whose lineage Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received his own initiation. So that's quite important. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very much considered by theologians around the world these days to be the reconciling force between the 2 schools of both Dvaita and Advaita philosophy through his Achintya, Beda, Tattva teachings. And I'm guessing that we all know what Achintya Beda refers to. Anyone?
Simultaneously one and different.
Okay, this is good, yes. What does that actually mean though? Simultaneous oneness and difference. Surely that's also contradictory, no?
It basically talks about the inconceivable potency of the Lord, where we are qualitatively, we are one with the Lord, but quantitatively, we are not one with the God.
Yes, that is also there. That is also there. Is there anything else there that's very, very important? Okay, so let me just talk a little bit about that before we move on. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he formulated the principle of Achintya Beda Tattva. And by doing so, I guess it would be fair to say that he cleared up an old paradox. That is simultaneous oneness and difference. And he clarified what is already sort of acknowledged and implied by many spiritual seekers, teachers, and philosophers alike. Mahaprabhu categorically stated that oneness and difference are actually verifiably inseparable, that they always exist simultaneously, and that their simultaneous existence lies at the core of all metaphysics. Big word that. We'll come back to that later on in this series and why I mentioned the word metaphysics there, because it's important. He taught that the Sanskrit word achintya, which means inconceivable, refers to the simultaneous existence of oneness and manyness, almost. Well, actually, not almost. He stated that. So when we use the word inconceivable, it's acknowledged that there is an aspect of reality which is incomprehensible to the human mind, that it goes beyond and defies all logic, at least as far as the human mind and senses are able to rationalize, capture, or even experience it. Beda means simultaneous oneness and manyness. And tattva means principle or truth. So achintya beda beda tattva refers to the truth of simultaneous oneness and difference as revealed to us by the Lord himself. And that's amazing. Just 500 years ago, the Lord came and he revealed something to us. We can prove also that this truth, this tattva, is correct through physical evidence. Take, for example, a rose. It has many petals of varying shades of the same color, scents, and a stem. It has a oneness. It is a rose, but it has many characteristics which, even when separated, can be characterized as a rose. It's important to understand that this before we proceed, because the philosophy of Achintya Beda Beda Tattva also explains the relationship between God and his creation. So it goes a lot further than saying simultaneous oneness and manyness. It explains that relationship between God and his entire creation. And it also explains a very special relationship, that between God and the living entity, such as ourselves. For example, our relations with the Lord is one of simultaneous oneness and yet difference. And somebody mentioned very correctly just now, we are one with God in a qualitative sense, how we are very, very different quantitatively. And Srila Prabhupada explains this, of course, in many, many places. So Achintya Beda Beda Tattva also explains the identity of the Lord insofar as, we can ascertain that the Lord is a person, but that he is simultaneously, and this is the interesting bit, he's simultaneously also impersonal because he has the Brahman feature. And we'll come to this a little later on, actually, when we're talking about the invocation. So the truth was told by the Lord. This truth was told by the Lord. So one could even say it is the Lord clarifying important aspects of Vedic knowledge, which includes all the Vedas and the Upanishads. Sri Ishopanishad is one of the Upanishads. And all these scriptures, the Vedas and the Upanishads, are part of the Shruti, part of Vedic knowledge. And Shruti, of course, we've already discussed, means that which is heard, received directly from God, heard by the great sages and passed down through the ages, unchanged, revealed absolute truth. It's transcendental sound vibration, and it's eternally unchanged. And it's quite important because we're going to come back to discuss how this philosophy of Achintya Beda Veda Tattva fits in with what is being taught in the Sri Ishopanishad later on, particularly, I think, when we talk about the invocation, mantra 1 and a few other places. Later on, maybe mantras 6 and 7 even, I think that's got something there as well. Okay, so what is the question for you? What is the Sri Ishopanishad about?
One step closer to the Lord.
Nice, very nice explanation. Anyone else?
Prabhuji, it's the essence of the absolute truth.
The essence of the absolute truth. That is very much a big part of what is being talked about in the Ishopanishad, absolutely. Let me put it another way. What does the title mean? Sri Ishopanishad.
The knowledge that brings nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna.
Yes, this is very good. So, in some of the authorized Vaishnava paramparas, the Sri Ishopanishad is also referred to as the Isha Upanishad. We've already said it's one of the 108 Upanishads. And somebody just mentioned that the Upanishad is the topmost cream of the absolute essence of the Vedas. And Srila Prabhupada, indeed, he considered it to be the topmost of the Upanishads, which is why he gave it to us, and why he gave us the Bhaktivedanta purports to help us navigate our way through it. Interesting thing is that people all over the world, devotees and non-devotees alike, many of whom are on some kind of spiritual journey, have long since looked to the wisdom, the mystery, and the deep philosophical knowledge of India and the Upanishads in particular. Oxford University in the UK has a great big series on the Upanishads. We actually even have the Oxford Centre for Hindu Studies there, which is, which actually has a lot of information that is being captured there that Srila Prabhupada wrote. So these people who are, on these spiritual journeys, they're looking for something deeply spiritual. And we, on the other hand, have been fortunate enough to have these Bhaktivedanta purports to help us understand the wisdom, the mystery, and the philosophical understanding of these very sacred texts. So somebody just said knowledge that brings us closer to the Isha, or to the Lord. Upanishad. Upa means near, ni means down, and shad means to sit. And Srila Prabhupada described it as the knowledge that brings one nearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada taught us that in order to gain spiritual knowledge and advance in spiritual life, one needs the guidance of a spiritual master. And it's there in the title there, quite literally, sit near the spiritual master and learn about the Supreme Controller, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And the process is very, very simple. Just take shelter. So I think we're probably ready then to move on to just getting on and talking about the introduction to the Sri Ishopanishad, as Prabhupada has penned it in his lecture in Conway Hall. I think it was 1969, October the 6th. So, has everybody read the introduction, by the way? Anybody not read the introduction? Okay, good. So then I'll invite some participation in a short while, so we can drill down into what you have read or understood from your reading the introduction of the Ishopanishad. But broadly, and here's somebody joining, broadly, the introduction presents us with a definition of Veda, the what, the how to receive the knowledge of the Vedas, and the need to take guidance, which is the why. So the how, the what, the why, and the how almost is there in the presentation of the introduction. So can I ask what you all understood from reading the introduction? Some points that we could put up. Maybe I can find let me see if I can put this up on a whiteboard. Oh, my whiteboard isn't working. Why is that? Here we go. Okay, so what did we all get from the introduction there? Anybody want to contribute to this?
Yeah, Vedas or the knowledge that comes from spiritual world from Lord Krishna.
Knowledge from spiritual world. Good. Anyone else?
Difference between
one at a time. One at a time.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Mataji, please go. Go
The
ahead.
nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described and how everything spiritual and material is related with him.
So relationship with material and spiritual. Okay, anyone else?
Difference between conditioned soul and liberated soul.
I tell you what, let's have people putting their hands up and then I will select, because otherwise it gets very messy. So yes, Anup Prabhu, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. There are 4 kinds of defects.
This is good. Yeah, this is very important point. Would you like to elaborate a bit on that, Anup Prabhu? What are the 4 defects?
The 4, first we are illusioned and our senses are imperfect.
Yeah.
And cheating propensity.
Okay.
And one more, I could not recall.
We commit mistakes.
Mistakes, right. So mistakes.
And our senses are imperfect.
Yes, so let me just make a note of this. Mistakes, imperfect.
Illusion.
Yeah. Illusion.
Cheating propensity.
Illusion and
cheating propensity.
Cheating, yes, good. So next time I do this whiteboard exercise, I'm going to choose a volunteer. I'm going to ask for a volunteer and I'm going to make you a co-host and you're going to write up all the notes that people contribute on the whiteboard so that we can see what the class is thinking so that we can start having some group discussions, okay? So I'm trying to simulate the class environment as much as I can. So bear with me, it's kind of an experiment. Let's see how we get on. And okay, anything else? Oh, actually, before we go there, what can we say about these imperfect? Let's talk about these 4 defects briefly. Anybody think of examples of our imperfect senses? What do we mean by when we say imperfect senses?
Probably like if we are sitting in one room, we can't hear something that is going on far away from us.
We can't hear something that is going on far away from us.
Our eyes vision is very limited. We can see only from a certain distance only.
Yes.
And also some objects we can see as a illusion, like a pencil in a glass of water. If you dip the pencil, it will show a different image.
Yeah.
So like that, our senses will show the different images.
Yeah, yeah. Very good, very good.
Our memory is limited. We can remember only limited things. So we cannot remember up after a certain extent.
So limited.
Prabhuji, it's a limited truth.
Or material sense far or logic.
It's relative truth.
Just 1 second. Ooh. Faulty logic. Mataji, you said something just now.
Prabhuji, it's the relative truth.
Relative truth. Okay, this is an interesting word as well. We're going to discuss this a little bit later. I'm glad you're coming out with all of this because this is very, very important stuff. What do we mean by relative truth, Mataji? Just for those who may not quite understand that term relative.
Because of our imperfect senses, let's say I am actually talking about something in my head and it actually differs depending upon what I really know, but actually it's something else. So we don't know if that's based on what I know, I can differ, and but actually the absolute truth is something else. So it's the knowledge that we have, which is imperfect, which leads us into relative truth.
Leads us into relative truth. Good, very good. Anything else anybody want to say about our 4 defects, the mistakes, imperfect senses, illusion? What do we mean by illusion? I mean, if
which is not.
Something which is not.
Something
Imagining things.
Something which is not.
We assume, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we assume things
with our own limited knowledge, without having any what you call base or references. We assume things in our mind.
Thinking body as a self.
Okay, this is a good example.
I'm from this country. I'm from this nationality. This is my all. This is under illusion. This property belongs to me. This is my money. This is my family. This is my everything. That all comes under, I think, Prabhuji, illusion.
Okay.
It's false ego, Prabhuji. We can.
False ego. Okay, that's also very good. Excellent. Yeah, this is really good stuff. Anything else? Anybody want to say about the 4 defects?
The material senses are far beyond our logic.
Material senses are far beyond logic. So I think we've got that up here, haven't we? Faulty logic and relative truth. That kind of encompasses what you've just said, I think. Anything else? Anybody want to make any point about that?
Oh, we missed out on cheating propensity. Prabhuji.
Cheating propensity. We haven't covered that. Yes. So what do we say about cheating propensity? Is this
Cheating propensity means a person, even though he's a fool, thinks that he's very intelligent, and then he also writes some books and preaches to the people, even though he's a fool.
False proprietorship.
Okay, good. Fool thinks he is intelligent. Thinks he is proprietor. Misleads others. Do we not, I mean, I don't know about you, but do we not find that this cheating propensity is becoming more and more prevalent in today's society? Anybody also feel this, or is it just me?
Oh, everybody.
Very, very true, Prabhuji. As and when Kali is progressing, this is increasing.
You know, I was born in 1967, so I'm not an old man, but I'm in my 50s, and I can remember when I was growing up as a small boy in Tanzania. Life was good, and then we came to London, and life was a little bit more difficult, living on the streets of London for many, many years. And then finally we got settled. And as I've grown up, I think as I've got older, and it's this cheating propensity around the world has become more and more prevalent. Everything's become more about money and what can other people get, or even sometimes what can I get out of it, and it's become a big thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later anyway. Okay, good. What else do we find in the introduction to the Ishopanishad?
Senses are imperfect.
Yes, we've already talked about that. So, so we talked about knowledge, that the Prabhupada is telling us that the knowledge of the Ishopanishad is knowledge from the spiritual world. He discusses the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship of the Lord with the material and the spiritual. He talks about the 4 defects, which we've gone into a little bit of detail about. Anything else that comes out in the introduction that's quite important? There's a lot of stuff going on in there.
Yeah, the 4 divisions of human society.
4 divisions of human society.
And also Vedic knowledge must be accepted as the highest authority.
This is what I was getting to. Excellent. Vedic knowledge must be, let me just write this down. And knowledge must.
Our real identification is Varnashrama.
Yeah, we've got that. The 4 divisions of human society. So Vedic knowledge must be accepted as highest authority. And this is important.
Others to be considered as mother.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
To accept this Vedic knowledge, one must accept a spiritual master to realize this highest authority.
And that we must accept spiritual master, yes?
And regarding the Vedas as the highest authority, there was a contrast of the Aroha Pantha and the Avaroha Pantha. So there are the ascending and descending modes of knowledge.
Yeah,
So,
and that's very, very important. What's important about that?
That the ascending process is not it's not perfect. Like it cannot fully go up because it's imperfection striving towards perfection.
Yes.
But the Aroha Pantha, I mean sorry, I got them mixed up. The Aroha Pantha, which is ascending, is faulty, but the descending Avaroha Pantha is perfect because it's perfection reaching down to imperfection, and therefore is not limited by its descent.
Descending process of knowledge is authoritative. Aroha is not. Very good. Okay, good. Okay, so let me move on then a little bit, and let's just summarize really what you said. This is really good. It's given me some food for thought here. Let's see if I can summarize what I'm getting from all of you. And that is that Srila Prabhupada in his introduction is defining Veda and emphasizing that in order to learn anything from the Vedas, one has to take instruction from a qualified source. We already established earlier on that Vedic literature is part of the Shruti, and that Shruti is revealed absolute truth. Therefore, the Vedas are one such qualified source, and Srila Prabhupada mentions this in his introduction, I believe. And it's not just as easy as picking up a book and trying to learn something from the bottom up. Because what we read in a book may be faulty. It needs the instruction of a dhira, or a sober person, or a spiritual master. One must approach a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter. Then we can obtain perfect knowledge. But the problem is, in trying to obtain this perfect knowledge, the Vedas, of course, is that perfect knowledge, is that we have the four defects of the human condition. Mistakes, we make mistakes, we have imperfect senses, we are illusioned, and we have a propensity to cheat. I'm trying to pick this up from the board and put it up into some kind of semblance of order. So please forgive me if it doesn't sound clear. Prabhupada mentions in his introduction there, he uses the phrase, somebody's speaking there, if you could just all mute your mics so I don't have to do that, that'd be great. Prabhupada mentions in his introduction, he uses the phrase to err is human. Does anybody know where that comes from? Or what does it mean? To err is human.
Hare Krishna, pranams Prabhuji.
Pranams, yes.
It means to do error is the nature of human.
Yes, to do error is the nature of the human being. And it comes from an essay on criticism by a famous chap called Alexander Pope. In his essay, he says, to err is human, to forgive divine. All people commit sins and make mistakes. God forgives them, and people are acting in a godlike or divine way when they also forgive each other, which I thought was rather beautiful. So it's important, to understand that as part of this human condition, we do have these defects, and because of those defects, we are going to make mistakes. Let's talk about these imperfect senses a bit, because I think that's a really fascinating subject. And you made some really nice point there. Something that occurred to me earlier today was that our senses are, in fact, so imperfect, because anything that works, and Mataji, you mentioned about relativity. You mentioned the word relativity. I see relativity as us being confined by our relative field of vision. Anything that works in this world has only been observed from the point of the view of this world. For example, let's take gravity. The world says Isaac Newton, he discovered gravity. Well, did he? Did he discover gravity?
No.
No, he didn't. The world says he discovered gravity because he observed an apple fall off a tree and hit somebody on the head or hit the ground. They say he made a discovery, but actually his mother before him, his father before him, his friends around him at the same time as him perhaps, and everyone, for generations and generations before, actually witnessed this phenomenon, that when an apple falls from a tree, it falls to the ground. The difference was that he thought about it differently. The world, however, chooses to say that he discovered it. Not that he understood it in a different way, because he observed it in a different way. He was seeing things in a different light. We were all seeing the same thing. He just happened to see past that limited field of vision. In actuality, he didn't create or discover gravity any more than he created the tree, the apple, or the ground. What he did was understand that there was a force that compelled the apple to fall from the tree, an invisible force, and he called it gravity and made a mathematical equation of some sort. The gravity was already there. It was already put there by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's face it, if you go into space, you float around. Gravity isn't there. But inside the bubble that is protecting this material planet from us shooting off into outer space and being squashed up by the air pressure and lack of oxygen up there, Krishna is actually protecting us. Interesting, that. And as for the principle of gravity, well, that principle, interestingly enough, is already discussed in the Vedas long, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years before the time of Isaac Newton. So how does that work? It works because we have faulty senses. And we see that he has written a mathematical equation to demonstrate the principle of gravity, and we say he discovered gravity, but we don't credit the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the creation of that phenomenon of gravity, which protects us and keeps us firmly rooted on this planet where everything is nicely provided for us. We're going to come to that point when we talk about Mantra 1. With our faulty senses, it's actually impossible, therefore, to perceive the Lord's real perfection. All we can do is speculate based on faulty observation limited by our field of vision, relativity. We can, on the other hand, we can take the words of the Vedas as literal. Supreme, absolute, revealed truth. Ravindra Prabhu, you have your hand raised.
No, sorry, Prabhu, it was earlier one. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. The Vedas, of course, however, are not faulty. The knowledge imparted to us in the Bhagavatam is also not faulty. And it all came a long time before the time of Isaac Newton. In science, we have the law of action and reaction. Interesting that, isn't it? Because it's actually fundamentally the law of karma, nothing more. Simply put, faulty knowledge, imperfect senses, claims everything to be the domain of faulty man and not the perfection of the creation of the perfect Lord. So we have to believe in the instructions given to us through the disciplic succession, through our bona fide spiritual masters. Guru has been empowered to impart this knowledge to us. And that knowledge, of course, comes directly from the Lord. And we read this in Bhagavad Gita 15.15, Vedanta Krid Vedavid Evachaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas, Krishna says. Just moving on quickly then to illusioned. somebody mentioned earlier, what did I say? What did we say about illusion here? Something which is not, according to limited knowledge. For example, bodily identification. Yes, so accepting that which is not. Prabhupada describes Maya as meaning that what is not. And we talked a little bit, of course, about cheating propensity. So with our imperfect senses and our 4 defects, Prabhupada asks the question or replies to the question when somebody said to him once, "Can you show me God?" He replied, "Do you actually have the eyes to see God?" Imperfect senses means imperfect knowledge. The 4 defects means the inability to understand this perfect knowledge. And in answer to Prabhupada's question, do we have the eyes to see God? Well, we may not, but he has given us the tools to enable us to realize that vision. And that vision is presented very, very succinctly here in the words of the Sri Ishopanishad and in the Bhaktivedanta purports, which help us to understand the text of this very, very sacred of texts. So a couple of other little things that come up, I guess, in the introduction. What does axiomatic truth mean? Does anybody know what that means?
It means
Cannot
like
be
a
changed. Cannot be changed.
It cannot be changed. Okay, it cannot be changed. Anything else?
The statement
It's
Cannot be
like
challenged,
a
Prabhu. Cannot be
it's a
challenged.
foundational
One at a time,
truth.
please. One at a time. Sorry. So Vijay Kumar Prabhu, you spoke. Who is speaking after Vijay Kumar Prabhu?
Prabhuji, I was just making correction. Cannot be challenged, Prabhuji.
Okay, so cannot be challenged. Okay. Anything else there?
The statement itself proves.
It's like self-evident. It exists just because it exists.
It's self-evident. It exists because it exists. This is good. This is very good too.
It's a principle or a law.
It's
a principle or a fixed law.
It's a principle. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Or you, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you can say it is authority or worthy.
If it's an authority, it's self-evident, it's unchangeable. What does that also make it?
It does not cannot be any mistake. There cannot be any mistake, Prabhuji.
It can't be any mistake, which means it makes it unquestionable. Prabhupada refers in his introduction there to the Vedas as being axiomatic truth. And it's vitally, vitally important that we understand that the Vedas are actually axiomatic truth, despite even any contradictions that we may find. And there are many, many contradictions all the way through the Vedas. Prabhupada cites a wonderful example in his introduction there when he talks about stool being impure on the one hand, yet cow dung is considered to be pure. And we're going to come across further examples later on in the study of the Sri Ishopanishad, which come up to be very, very interesting. So if they're axiomatic truth, they're self-evident and unquestionable and full of contradictions which can be explained, Vedic knowledge therefore also comes from the spiritual world, that is from Krishna directly. It is therefore revealed scripture. We simply have to accept, then everything will become perfect, Prabhupada says. And he uses the wonderful example, of course, of Shruti being considered to be like the mother. Shruti is acquired through hearing. Just like he uses that example there in the introduction, child asks mother, who is my father? Who is my father? Child has to accept. So then how do we receive this wonderful, we talked about the knowledge. Let's talk about how we receive that knowledge. It's also in the introduction there. So there are 3 ways that Prabhupada says we should understand how we receive this knowledge. Those are what? Does anybody know?
Pratyaksha,
Anumana and Shabda Pramana.
Okay, good. Yes, these three ways. Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda Praman. Pratyaksha means what?
Evidence.
Direct evidence. And why is that not, why does Prabhupada say it's not a very good way of actually understanding anything? Or very much?
Because we have imperfect senses.
Here we go. Here we go. Back again to our imperfect senses. Back to our relativity. And he uses the example in the purport there of we are seeing the sun daily and it looks to us like a small disk in the sky, but it's actually very, very, very much larger. So what value is this seeing, he asks in the introduction. And then he says, okay, so then we read books because we want to understand about the sun. And that's like reading in the book, we get this anuman, inductive knowledge. It may be like this, it may be like that. He also gives us the example of Darwin's theory of evolution. It's a hypothesis. That's another thing. It's not science. It's a suggestion. It's called the theory of evolution. It's called the theory of evolution for a reason, because it's not actually been proven. It's been observed as a possibility based on a series of observations over a limited amount of time by one man with his limited senses. Deduction. Using his senses to observe something. And then Prabhupada says, but that is not science. That is a suggestion. It is not perfect. But if you receive the knowledge from the authoritative sources, that is perfect. If you receive a program guide from the radio station authorities, you accept it. You don't deny it. You don't have to make experiment because it is received from the authoritative sources. Vedic knowledge, on the other hand, of course, is referred to as Shabda Pramana, as somebody just mentioned. And another name for that, of course, is Shruti. Shruti meaning received by oral reception. And the Vedas instruct us very, very early on, thousands of years ago, that we have to understand spiritual transcendental knowledge from a higher authority. Because this knowledge is from beyond the material universe as we know it. Prabhupada asks the question, if we can't go to the end of the universe even, how can we go to the spiritual world? So to obtain this full knowledge is not an easy task. But we have been given the tools to do so. We have a choice. In the practice of Krishna consciousness, to be a Vaishnava, to wear this tilak, to chant our rounds, means accepting the knowledge from the highest of sources, from the Lord, from Sri Krishna himself. The Vedas are handed down to us through this disciplic succession to our Guru. And that means acceptance, not experiment. Guru has heard the message of the Vedas and he can impart it. And there is a beautiful prayer. This sometimes we say after we've been performing Achman, Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suryaha Diviva Chakshuratatam Tad Viprasho Vipanyavo Chakravam Shahasimindate Vishnu Riyat Paramam Padam. Does anybody know what that means? It's a prayer that basically, from the Vedas, it says that, you know, those who can see the sun's rays in the skies and can understand this spiritual knowledge and are wise and learned can also impart it to others. It's very simple, but it's very beautiful as well, and it's very true. If one opens one heart to accept spiritual knowledge directly from the spiritual kingdom, directly from Krishna, then one becomes empowered to spread that knowledge, to share that knowledge. And interestingly, Vedantists and Vaishnavas all accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We will come to that later on when we talk about impersonalism, and we are going to talk about impersonalism later on in this series. The supreme absolute truth, Prabhupada said, is described in the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutra, but one must understand the verses as they are. That is the supreme glory in understanding. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Adi Leela 7.106 to 108, it states, the material defects of mistakes, illusions, cheating, and sensory inefficiency do not exist in the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The absolute truth is described in the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutra, but one must understand the verses as they are. That is the supreme glory in understanding. And Prabhupada explains that if you want to know something beyond your experience, beyond your experimental knowledge, beyond the activities of the senses, then you have to accept the Vedas. There is no question of experimenting. It has already been experimented. It is already settled. The version of the mother, for instance, has to be accepted as the truth. There is no other way. It's a very powerful introduction in this speech at Conway Hall. So I'm just going to put my slides back up and put myself onto, my video has to go when I do this because it won't work otherwise. So just bear with me 1 second. So these are, we're going to move on now from the introduction. But there are 7 lessons, I suppose, or 7 important lessons that come up in the study of the Sri Isha Upanishad. And those are knowledge of the Supreme Person, knowledge of the living entities, knowledge about materialism, instructions on how we might defeat impersonalism, information on performing bhakti, or how we might grow spiritually through the process of bhakti yoga. Knowledge about the supreme absolute truth. And very, very important principle called the Ishavasya principle. So these are the most important topics that we're going to concentrate on in our study of the Sri Isha Upanishad, because this is really what's encapsulated within the Bhaktivedanta purports of the Sri Isha Upanishad. So, okay, let's now move on to the invocation. But before we do, let's just understand something about the structure of the Isha Upanishad. You might have seen this somewhere before. So you could say the Isha Upanishad is split into 3 sections. And those 3 sections are vision, guidelines, and prayers, or I like to call them knowledge, guidelines, and prayers. Knowledge, which is presented in the first 8, in the invocation and the first 8 mantras, which present us with knowledge with which to develop proper spiritual vision. Remember, I said I asked that question. Srila Prabhupada asked, do you have the eyes to see? You want to see God, but do you have the eyes to see? So in the first 8 mantras, we're presented with some incredible information that solidifies the knowledge that we've already been learning throughout our spiritual journey. And the Isha Upanishad presents us with some more information and some beautiful information on how we can grow in that knowledge and develop more serious vision spiritually. Then we have the second section, which is mantras 9 to 14, which provide us with guidelines on how to understand and practice this knowledge. And then in mantras 15 to 18, of course, some very beautiful and interesting prayers to enable us to realize both the vision and the practice, and to enable us to stay fixed in our spiritual knowledge and practice. So then let's move on to the reading of the invocation. Can I have somebody read, please? Oh, actually, before we do that, let's just read through. I said we were going to do the contextual reading of all the mantras together. So can we start with this mantra, the English translation only first? We'll come back to the Sanskrit afterwards. And if we could read in the order that we spoke about at the beginning of the class. So I didn't write this down. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, mantra 1.
Yes.
Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong to. Mantra 2. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years. If he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. Mantra 3. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Hare Krishna.
And the next reader?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji. Mantra 4. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. Mantra 5. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. Mantra 6. He who sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Next person, please.
Hare Krishna. Mantra 7. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Mantra 8. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Mantra 9. Those who engage in the culture of nascent activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, thank you.
Mantra 10. The wise have explained that one result in derived from the culture of knowledge, and that is different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Mantra 11. Only one who can learn the process of nescience, and that the transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Mantra 12. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute.
Mantra 13, it is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this was heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explained it. Mantra 14, one should know perfectly well about the personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, man and animals. When one knows this, he surpasses death and the a primal cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Mantra 15. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee.
Mantra 16. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of pure devotees, well-wisher of progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as I am, as am I. Mantra 17. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now I am my Lord. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. Mantra 18. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one. Now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you. And since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sin so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So the invocation. Om Purnam Adaha Purnam Midam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vishishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as the complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself. And because he is the complete whole, even though so many units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Wow. Every time I read that, I'm amazed. Complete this, perfect that, complete that. So many completes and so many perfects. And it's almost confusing to understand. But that's the whole point, because I have limited and imperfect abilities. But there's some really amazing things and interesting things going on here in this invocation. And Prabhupada writes a wonderful, beautiful purport on this, describing, of course, the completeness and personality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So let's talk a little bit about completeness. What is this? What have I done
Krishna
here?
material universe.
Just one second. Who was that? Somebody raised their hand to speak there. I think it was Nandi Mukhi Mataji. Please speak, Mataji. Hare Krishna, please speak.
Yeah, Krishna plus material universe is equal to complete.
And?
Krishna minus material universe is not complete.
Yeah.
I mean, that is also complete.
Yeah. So he doesn't need us, but we need him, because he can carry on without this material universe. No problem at all. But if he disappears, we're in trouble, because we won't be here. He can carry on completely without us. There's no issue with that at all. If we disappeared tomorrow, no problem. He can carry on. Everything is perfect. Everything is complete. But if he's not here, There's no possibility of us even existing. So how can we do anything? And that's the beauty of this purport. That's the simplicity of really what's going on in the, this invocation of the Sri Isha Upanishad. There's 3 key points that are really covered in the purport of the invocation. And one is that Krishna is the complete realization of any kind of transcendence. We're going to come there in a minute. And we also talk about the Lord's 3 features of completeness and how they increase in realization. And we learn about those 3 features, of course, from the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Paramaha Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha, Anadiradi Govinda, Sarvakarana Karanam. It's a beautiful, beautiful verse there. And of course, if you put all that together, that he is the complete realization of any kind of transcendence, and that his 3 features are increasing realizations of that completeness, those 3 realizations being his energies and potencies and everything else, then we can also understand that those potencies and energies and emanations are also perfect and also complete. And if one chooses to be open in a very sincere effort to this realization, then Krishna makes all suitable arrangements and provides all the facilities that one could possibly need to further one's spiritual progress. But regardless of that, even if one doesn't accept, Krishna provides all the facilities that one could possibly need to exist. And then if one wants to go one step further and progress spiritually and get to know Krishna, then he opens that door too. So let's talk about some of these aspects which come up in this purport. Let's talk a little bit about completeness. So God is complete and he has a form. And Prabhupada explains that all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly complete as a complete whole. So I'm going to ask you a question here. I want you to take a couple of minutes to think about it, and then I'd like some feedback to come back on this. And that is that, how is it so that all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly complete and basically a complete whole? How is this so? And give some practical examples. And if the above statement, that all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly complete as a complete whole, then why is there suffering in the world? Because perfection, perfectly complete, means also perfection. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that when we see suffering in the world. And if we are a part of the complete whole, another question for you is, why do we actually sometimes feel so incomplete? Why do we get frustrated? And why does never anything always feel perfect or complete? So these are 3 questions. I want you to take a few minutes just to think about that, and let's just see what comes back in the group as part of a conversation. Because this mantra is explaining to it that God is complete and he's perfect and that he has a form. And if he's complete and he's perfect, well, that means that he also cares. So how is it so? How is it that, everything is perfect, everything is complete? And give some practical examples. And if everything is so complete, then why is there suffering in the world? And then if everything is so complete and whole, then why is it sometimes we feel really incomplete? So take a couple of minutes and I'm going to come back to you. Just give me 2 minutes and I'm going to leave that on the board for a minute and then I'll come back to you. So, what thoughts do we have on these questions?
Due to the incomplete knowledge of the complete, we are ending up suffering, and we are part and parcel of the complete, but not, we are only the part and parcel of the complete. But until we get dovetailed to the complete, we still remain incomplete.
Okay. All right. So what about the first question then? If everything comes from the Lord, such as this phenomenal world, and it's all perfect and it's all complete, then just how is this so? And give some practical examples. What do you see as being perfect and complete about everything?
Everything is complete in the sense the Lord has created this material world, and He has given everything for the living entity to use it. Like He has given the food, He has given the light through sun, moon. So in that way, He has given the complete arrangement, and in that He has given us the chance to utilize it and go back to Him. So that is what I understood completeness is for the first question.
Yeah, this is good. Everything that's necessary for our maintenance, to sustain us. It is there, and it's also there in perfect balance. Everything, and actually every living being, lives in a symbiotic relationship with everything else.
Everything is interdependent, Prabhuji.
Interdependent. Yeah. Carry on, Mataji. We're going to say something.
Yes, Prabhuji. Everything created by Lord is interdependent. Like even a small ant, for instance, the food chain is also interdependent. Interdependence of plants and animals, and even in our body, every part is complete in itself. Like hand is complete in itself, but
Yes.
when and they function as a whole. So this is what I understood, Prabhuji.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Anybody want to add to that?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji,
Yes.
the whole creation is made so perfect. You can see the whole universe. For example, sunrise, moonrise, everything is perfect. There's no defect at all.
Yeah.
You cannot see one planet is dashing with another planet or something like that. Everything floats its own direction like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's a wonderful part in this purport, which let me see if I can find it quickly. Yeah, I'm going to come to this in a minute. Okay, any other thoughts to add to that?
Prabhuji, basically, we don't create anything for our needs in this material world. Everything is already provided by the Lord using these 24 elements. Everything is provided. We are just making use of it, and we assume that we are creating it.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, this is what I wanted us all to start thinking about. You know, we plant the fields and we say, look at my rice field. Look at my corn, look at my beans. But they're not my beans. They're not his beans or her beans. They're not your beans. They're the Lord's beans. He gave us the seeds. In the Bhagavad Gita, he confirms, I am the seed-giving Father. That doesn't just mean when we're talking about the human form of life. The plants also have a form of life. We can come back as a tree, no? For example. So the seed has already been provided by the Lord. We are simply making use of something, a gift that's been given to us for our maintenance. That's what makes it also perfectly complete. Then, if everything is so complete, why is there suffering in the world? If everything's so perfect and everything's been perfectly provided, and you know, why is there suffering in the world? What causes suffering? I've heard people say to me on the streets when I've been out on book distribution, oh, you Hare Krishnas, you all believe in God. You know, if there's such a thing as God, then why are these children in Africa suffering and why are they starving? How do we answer this question?
We are not surrendered to the Lord.
One at a time. Let's go to Prabhu first. Was that Ravi Teja Prabhu, was it?
We are not surrendered to the Lord.
We are?
We are not surrendered fully to the Lord.
We are not surrendered fully to the Lord. That's actually very, very true. We're not surrendered fully to the Lord. But how can you tell somebody on the streets, there's no suffering in the world because you're not fully surrendered to God? They're going to look at you and think, oh, fanatic. And then they're going to run away. How do we convince them? How do we give them a tangible reason that they can think about and say, well, actually, you know what? Maybe this guy Prabhupada, he's got a point. Maybe I should read his book.
We have to slowly tell about Lord Krishna, slowly in his level. We have to go to his level and we have to invoke Krishna consciousness in him.
Yes, this is good. This is very good. Let me go to Divya Dinu. Is this the...
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
The suffering is due to the incomplete knowledge of the complete whole.
Incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. But what does that mean? What does that mean to an ordinary person? Incomplete. You don't know because you don't have complete knowledge of the complete whole. He's going to look at me and go, what are you talking about?
All the living entities are part and parcel of Lord Krishna, and the knowledge is not there in the living entities. And we are trying to enjoy separate from Krishna, which will not give any happiness, the real happiness.
Yeah, but you believe that, and I believe that, huh? How do we make everybody else believe that this is the truth? There has to be something there that, you know, and it's there in the Sri Isha Upanishad, right? And it's there in Prabhupada's purport. And we're going to come to it in a minute, but I want to see where we're coming to with this. So let me take a few more responses. Krishna Gopakumara Prabhu.
We are not the body, we are the soul.
We are not the body, we are the soul. You guys live in the Middle East, yeah?
Yes, Prabhu.
Now, I guess it's a little bit different over there because you can't go out on book distribution. Can you? You can't go on book distribution there, no. And we have got books in Arabic now, by the way. Many books in Arabic language, and they're being, you know, I live in Sridham Mayapur, by the way. So, you know, we're seeing these books flying off the shelves at the moment, and many orders coming in for books in Arabic, but people can't go out there on the street. Now, if you meet a Western man, say, who comes to your center where you're preaching, and he says, this is all very nice, you know, this, you know, singing Hare Krishna and, you know, sharing prasadam, as you call it, together, and this beautiful, loving, joyful atmosphere that you're creating. But tell me, this strong belief that you have in your relationship with God, if he's such a loving God, then why does he allow people to suffer? Why is this happening? If he's so perfect and he's so complete, then why is he allowing these small kids in Africa to go hungry and starve? How do we answer this?
Everyone, is it because of the previous karma? That is the binding thing. Everyone has.
Come on.
Yeah. You know, if they say that, you know, even if they counter it saying that no, that it is not karma and other things, then one question immediately can be asked. Then how can there be so many people? There is a dog, there is maybe a rich man, and there is a very poor man on the street. So this is the justification we can give it.
This is a good justification, yeah. But what if somebody doesn't believe in karma?
That's what, you know, immediately we can say that if they don't believe in karma, then how come all the people are not same? Like if they believe in science, then the same formula should be applicable to everything. Then how come everybody is different?
Okay, this is good. This is good. What about Mulik Joshi? Your hand is raised, and you're muted. Yes.
Actually, we are dependent on Lord, and for our breath also, we are depending on Krishna, because early morning we wake up, that is because of that Supreme. So that consciousness should be there. And we are in this conditioned world. That is why we have lost this connection. So we have to revive this.
Okay, good. Anything else? Anything else? Anybody got there?
Prabhuji, one who is suffering because he has not obeyed the laws. He has gone against the laws of nature.
Okay, so what about a small child? How has that small child gone against the laws of nature? Children are innocent, yes? Mostly, at least. You get some terrorists. Yes.
We have to tell, we want to show your original father. So like that we have to start. Then they will understand who is our original father.
Okay. So
Lord Krishna.
Good. So all of you made some very interesting points there. You know, karma, we have that we've forgotten who Krishna is. All of this is really important. And we also spoke a little bit earlier about how everything is interdependent on everything else, that we live in a symbiotic relationship with the rest of this perfect creation. But there's one thing that we missed out on completely. Today's suffering.
Knowledge?
Go on, Prabhu, go on.
Yeah, is it because they have not received any guidelines in terms of a perfect knowledge, or they have not practiced? That's the reason they have been suffering, including the children. The parents have not given any guidelines and proper practice to them, and that's the reason they have been suffering.
So it could be, it very well could be. It's a very valid reason there. Tanuja Umapati Mataji, you have your hand raised there.
Prabhuji, the main reason is because of our broken relationship with the Lord.
Broken relationship with the Lord. Yes, this is one of the key things, and it's that final question there. If we are part of the complete whole, why do we sometimes feel so incomplete?
What about Dukhalayam Shashwatam, Prabhuji?
Yes. Expand on that a bit further, Prabhu. Go on, I'll give you the floor for a minute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, because of our desire, we are desiring more.
Desiring more. We're getting warmer now. I can feel the pie baking. This is where I'm trying to get to. Yeah. All these things that you've said are very important. All the points that you made are very relevant. But just in terms of scripture, what about the practical everyday application of it? We have been given wonderful resources within this material universe to enjoy. And that's where we go wrong. We enjoy too much, and we take more than we are supposed to take. And that's what comes up in Mantra 1 that we're going to go and discuss in a minute. In this material nature, everything has been provided for. Look at the flowers in the fields. They are so wonderfully dressed in these beautiful colors and dresses. They don't even have to move to get their food because the rain comes down and feeds them. They don't even have to move to procreate because the birds and the bees, they come and take the pollen from one plant to another plant. And then they have the insects that crawl on them to take away all the other things that should be there. And sometimes the insects get hungry, so they get their food from the plant. And there's a chain, that symbiotic circle goes on. But nothing is owned or created by us, not even the house that we live in. Take the bricks. It comes from the mud, yeah, the bricks. Lord provides all of this for our maintenance, to give us shelter, to give us food. Problem is, we abuse the resources of material nature. When we do this, we create imbalances in the fabric of the material planet that we have been given. We are stewards of this planet. We have been given this planet not just to live in, but to look after. We're going to talk about this later on in the series when we talk about responsibility. It's a big thing. Prabhupada explains to us that the material universe is an emanation of Krishna himself, is designed to be self-contained. And these material elements are arranged to produce all the necessary items for our maintenance and sustenance. And if we abuse those resources, then there is a price to pay. And that price is because everything runs on a fixed cycle of time. a complete cycle of time, which is incomprehensible to us because we create our 24-hour clock on our 365-day year. That's not actually the Vedic calendar, of course, either. So we kind of fit it to our own desire for the way we want to live. And the point that we actually really miss, and some of you did make that point actually, is that the Jiva souls, we are in complete relationship with Krishna. And the completeness of that individual soul is very different from that of Krishna because it's not based upon self-sufficiency. It's rather based on complete dependency upon Krishna. And then when we abuse the resources of that material nature, there's a disconnect. There's a big disconnect in our relationship with the resources that the Lord has provided. And that leads to a disconnect with Krishna. We get covered by Maya, by illusion, and we get covered by our imperfect senses. And that draws us away from our complete relationship, that complete natural relationship that we have with the complete whole, the complete and perfect whole, which is Krishna. Going back to that equation, Krishna plus the material universe equals complete. Krishna minus the universe, material universe, also equals complete. We need him. He doesn't need us, but he wants us. And when we abuse that relationship, then we have to pay a price. Does that make sense? So I think it's very important, all of this. In his purport to the Sri Upanishad, Prabhupada comments that the complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience. Otherwise, he cannot be complete. I want you to remember that phrase, because later on we're going to have a discussion when we come to mantras, I think 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, where this particular aspect is going to come up. There was part of the purport there that I wanted to read because I think Prabhupada puts it very beautifully. If you just give me 1 second, I want to find this. Human beings are not meant for quarreling like cats and dogs. They must be intelligent enough to realize the importance of human life and to realize the aim of human life. The Vedic literature is meant for humanity and not for cats and dogs. Cats and dogs can kill other animals for food, and for that there is no question of sin on their part. But if a man kills an animal for the satisfaction of his uncontrolled taste buds, he is responsible for breaking the laws of nature, and therefore he must be punished, going back to the aspect of abusing the resources of material nature. I used to eat meat, fish, eggs, drink, smoke, by the way, until 5 years ago when I joined Krishna consciousness, when my whole life changed around. And, you know, I was really taken by the purports, by these Bhaktivedanta purports, and reading these words of the Sri Iso Upanishad. This particular part of the purport to this invocation really struck a chord with me. There is a standard of life for human beings which cannot apply to animals. The tiger does not eat rice, wheat, or cow's milk because it has been given its quota of foodstuff in the shape of animal food. There are many animals and birds who are either vegetarian or non-vegetarian, but none of them transgress the laws of nature. Actually, this is from Mantra 1, which we're going to come back to, but that's the bit which actually really got me, and which I think is quite relevant to actually even talking about the invocation. Prabhupada concludes his discussion of the invocation by saying that the completeness of human life can only be realized when the human form of life is engaged in the service of the complete whole. Any service in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete unless it is dovetailed with the complete whole. And when everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels also become complete in themselves. So, one other important point, and I think somebody has their hand raised there. Tanuja Umapati Mataji wanted to say something?
Sorry, Prabhuji, I forgot to lower my hand.
That's okay, that's okay. So there's a couple of things. In the Ishopanishad, in the invocation there, before we finish on this, Prabhupada states that Bhagavan realization is complete realization of the Lord, and that the material world is complete in itself. You've studied the Bhagavad Gita now, and from Krishna's own words, can anybody think of confirmation where Krishna is actually confirming to Arjuna what is actually stated in this ancient Upanishad? In terms of Bhagwan realization being complete realization of the Lord, and that the material world is complete within itself. Any verses that you can think of that kind of...
Hare Krishna, pranams Prabhuji.
Pranams, yes, Mataji.
Is it Aham Sarvasva Prabhavo?
That's a good verse. Do you want to? Would you like to read the verse and the translation?
Yes, Prabhuji. 10.8. Yeah, I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
Yeah, that's a very, very good verse. Anybody else think of anything else? There's many, many, many verses like this in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is confirming all of this. Yes, go on, read. Okay, would you like to read the translation as well?
Yes, Prabhuji. Krishna says, I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon, thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
Yeah, good, good, very good, thank you. And then we've got more coming up on the board there. We've got 15.5, 15.15, 9.10.
9.4. 9.4.
Yes.
9.4.
9.4. Yeah, so you can see actually scripture throughout confirms everything. And there's another one, and this 9.10 is actually really quite important. Madhyakshena prakriti suyate cha satcharacharam hetuna nena kuntaya jagat Parivartate. I can't remember it all the Sanskrit, but I'm trying. And I think it goes something along the lines of the material nature being one of Krishna's energies. It works under his direction. And he's saying that all moving and non-moving beings, all moving and non-moving being entities are produced by his direction, and under his rule, this manifestation is created, annihilated again and again. I don't know if anybody's got it in front of them, but please check if I got that correct. I got it correct? Okay, good.
Yes, completely correct.
Thank you. And then 7.7, somebody mentioned 7.7. I can't remember that verse. If somebody wants to read that out, please.
मत्तः परतरं नान्यत् किञ्चिदस्ति धनञ्जय मयि सर्वम् इदं प्रोत सूत्रे मणिगणा इव.
Yeah, and can you read the translation for everybody's benefit as well, please?
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread.
So interesting, these things. Then we've got 10.8 as well. Very good, all of these things. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's also confirmed in, I think it's 1.2.11, where the complete Bhagwan's complete realization of the Lord is confirmed there as learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Of course, this is all talked about in the invocation there as well. So, to summarize, the complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies, and this is from the purport of the Ishopanishad, all of which, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has immense potencies, all of which are complete as He is. Thus, this phenomenal world is also complete in itself. The 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation are arranged to produce everything necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. No other unit in the material universe need make an extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe. The universe functions on its own timescale, which is fixed by the energy of the complete whole. And when that schedule is completed, this temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete whole. All facilities are given to the small complete units, namely the living beings, to enable them to realize the complete whole. All forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. Shri Ishopanishad, invocation. Okay, so we're going to take a 2-minute break there. I just need to take some medication if you don't mind. And then we're going to continue with mantra 1. We're still okay to finish for 10 o'clock, is that okay? Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, good. All right, so we will cover mantra 1. That's good because we're making good progress today. So please, if you wouldn't mind, just give me 2 minutes just to take some tablets and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so let's move on then to mantra 1. If somebody could please read the Sanskrit for me.
Ishavasam sarvam. Continue, Mataji.
वास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत् तेन तत्तेन मुञ्जीता मा गृधा कस्य स्विद्धनम्.
Thank you, Mataji. Could you also read the translation?
Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So again, this is a very interesting and powerful mantra of the Sri Isha Upanishad. Its central theme reverberates not only throughout the Sri Isha Upanishad, but actually throughout the whole of creation, just as the invocation does. In the invocation, we talked about perfection and completeness. And here we're talking about everything, whether it's animate or inanimate. And that means what it says. It says what it is on the tin. Anything organic, anything inorganic even. So right down to the last particle of soil or stone or whatever. It belongs to him and is controlled by him. And this opens up the way then that if everything is owned and controlled by the Lord, whether it's inorganic or organic, then it opens up something even bigger. And that is the concept of quotas. We talked a little bit about this in the during the discussion on the invocation as well. And that opens up an even bigger question. And that is the question of responsibility. I touched on something earlier, and that is that we have been given stewardship of this planet Earth. We are the caretakers of this planet. Not just the inhabitants, like spoiled children. That's not what we are. We have a sense, we have been given a responsibility to look after these resources in order to benefit our existence. There's 3 aspects of this purport that one can analyze. Is anybody comfortable with using the whiteboard if I make you a co-host? Can you raise your hand? Okay, so Ramya Vani Mataji. Yes, so I'm going to make you co-host. So I'm going to invite some more responses from the group. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so you can open up a whiteboard. So there's a few things that are being explored here. I guess what can we say? Can you bring up the whiteboard then, Mataji, and then you can write? Have we lost Ramyavani?
I'm trying, Prabhu. I'm not able to see the whiteboard here actually.
Oh, okay. So basically you go to where it says share screen.
Yeah.
And then you will see whiteboard.
Yes, got it.
Yeah, so if you share that, and then what you can do is you can put text box. Now you're sharing your WhatsApp, I think.
Sorry. I'm just going there once again. Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Stop share and participants share. Everyone sharing. Share screen. Yep. Okay, done.
Okay, so you're sharing your screen, and what you can do is, that's it, you've got a text box up there now. So there are three key things, I guess, three nutshells that is being talked about in the purport to this Sri Ishopanishad. Would anybody like to hazard a guess as to what is being discussed here?
Very first line Prabhupada has mentioned it, the Vedic knowledge is infallible.
The Vedic knowledge is infallible. Good. And if it's infallible, what does it make it?
Lord is the source of everything and everything belongs to him.
Yeah, okay. So that's another point. So we've got Vedic knowledge is the most authoritative knowledge we will come across. It's infallible. And then you've got Krishna is what did you say, Mataji?
Krishna is the source of everything and everything belongs to him. So we are focusing on everything within this world. Okay. And it's like he owns everything.
He owns everything. Okay, good. So let's drill down a little bit more into this Vedic knowledge. What is the word that's used?
Transcendental, Prabhuji.
Transcendental. Somebody said it just there.
The knowledge is transcendental.
Just one second, one at a time, because otherwise you talk over each other. If you could raise your hands. Tanuja Mataji said transcendental. Vedic knowledge is transcendental. And then other Mataji said something else.
Apaurushaya.
Apaurushaya. What does Apaurushaya mean?
Without any defects.
Without any
What's spoken by the Lord?
Spoken by the Lord. What does that mean? Oh, spoken by the Lord without any defects. Apaurushaya. How do we get? If it's
not delivered, Prabhuji, not delivered by any mundane person.
Not delivered by any mundane person. That means it comes down through the disciplic succession. Here we are. That point is being hammered home already at the very beginning of the Ishopanishad, from the introduction to the invocation to the mantra 1 already. That this knowledge is very transcendental. It's uparushaya, it's transcendental, it's transferred through the disciplic succession, which also means it is above what?
Who is free from 4 defects, owner of the Prakriti.
Exactly, it's free from the 4 defects.
Apaurushaya meaning not a human.
Yes.
And owner of the Prakriti, 3 modes of material nature.
Yes, so it's above all of this knowledge. And it's important that we get to grips with this at the very, very beginning. So this is all good. And then what does it say about the Sri Ishopanishad?
Isha, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Controller.
Yes.
And Supreme Owner. And Ishvara is Isha. And Jagat is the moving and non-moving universe, accepting the allegation. Jagat also is accepting the allegation.
Okay, good. This is good. So how would you summarize that? I would summarize what you've just said as that this Vedic knowledge is therefore knowledge about who owns this universe, who owns everything in this universe. Knowledge about the proprietorship of the Lord. That's where I'm trying to get to. So if the Lord is the proprietor of all things,
within the universe, animate or inanimate, everything is controlled by the Supreme Lord.
Okay, good.
Tena tektena, I could understand fully the share or allegation done for us by the Supreme Lord.
Perfect. And what is that? What is that? What is the actual term for that then? What is that Prabhupada is saying? What does that mean? There's a word for that.
Tena tektena.
Tena tyaktena bhunjita is the phrase, but there is something that Prabhupada uses.
Kota, that is called Kota, Prabhu. We have a
Quota,
quota.
yes, quota is very
Yes.
important.
Quota.
Yeah. So Krishna is the origin of all. He's the cause of all causes, and he's the proprietor of everything. He gives us this most infallible and authoritative knowledge, the Vedic scriptures, which are Purushaya, transcendental knowledge. And part of that knowledge is that he is the origin of all the energies and of all things. All things of this world are his energies. Everything material, everything spiritual. Therefore, everything, all doctrines on the distribution of material resources must take into account the Lord's proprietorship. He is the supreme controller. And in the mantra, let me just turn to mantra 1 here for 1 second, if you don't mind. The very first word is Ishavasyam. Isha meaning by the Lord, and Vasyam meaning controlled. So this Ishavasyam principle is what is being discussed here. Just 1 second, there's somebody at my door. Excuse me for that. So yes, this Ishavasyam principle is what is being discussed in this mantra, and the Ishavasyam principle is actually telling us that the Lord is the owner and the controller of everything that we see and experience around us, and that everything that we see and experience around us comes from his energies. The invocation explained that the personality of Godhead is perfectly complete, and so are his energies. And Srila Prabhupada comments that all forms of incompleteness are due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. Mantra 1 describes how the living entities can, with a little bit of instruction and knowledge, regain that sense of completeness by learning what Krishna expects from us in our relationship with him. In our relationships in the material world, we have boundaries, and we know how to, we learn and we know how to behave properly in relationships with each other. Krishna, as our friend and father, simply wants our love. And with that love, he wants and expects that we act and behave appropriately in our relationship with him, respecting those boundaries which we naturally observe with one another. And when I'm talking about boundaries, I'm also talking about not exploiting those natural resources which he's so very kindly set aside for our use and our benefit, to maintain us, to sustain us, to feed us, to clothe us. The relationships which he's provided for us that we have with each other, that we should be learning to love each other and nurture those relationships with each other in the proper manner, not to abuse each other, to criticize each other. Just as we have responsibilities towards each other, we have those responsibilities towards Krishna. And this action, understanding that he is the supreme proprietor and controller, and that he has set aside a quota, we have these boundaries to work within. This is called Ishavasya consciousness. And it's a very important principle because it's going to keep coming up again, again, and again throughout our study. I'm just going to stop the video for a minute. You can stop sharing your screen, Mataji, if you don't mind, because I'm going to share mine now. Thank you. Just bear with me 1 minute. This confirmation that the Krishna is the proprietor, of course, comes up in many, many, many places. Not least in what you see on the screen there in the Bhagavad Gita. he describes, which, Bhagavad Gita 7.4 describes the Lord's perfection, his proprietorship and independence from the laws of material nature. Somebody, I think, read that out last time. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these constitute my original material energies. This confirms our constitutional position in relation to the Lord, those boundaries that I was talking about. The Narada Pancharatra provides us with further confirmation. Can I have somebody please read this slide?
Prabhuji, are you sharing the screen because we are missing the content?
Oh, okay. I beg your pardon. I thought that was being shared. Thank you for pointing that out, because it's showing me that it's sharing. Just bear with me. I might need to make a small adjustment here. Okay, there you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Can somebody please read this slide here from the Narada Pancharatra for me?
Vishnu Putrini Rupani. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes three Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy known as the Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. He is present in even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these three Vishnus can be liberated from the material entanglement.
Good, thank you. So now we're also getting that flavor that actually these energies of Krishna are spreading out vastly and permeating throughout all of space and time and creation, even in those words there. Everything material and spiritual are the Lord's energies. Aparayam mitastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayadam dharyate jagat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. In that very verse 7.5 in the Bhagavad Gita, he is basically telling Arjun, my friend, the living entities are crossing that boundary, exploiting the resources of material nature and breaking the Ishavasya principle. So you see there, the Ishavasya principle or consciousness is the central theme actually of the Ishopanishad, and it runs right throughout it. And as I explained earlier, sometimes this is referred to as the Ishavasya Upanishad in many circles, many theological circles. I did my master's on this particular subject with the University of London, my theology master's about 3 years ago. And it's interesting. I used to be a Catholic priest, by the way, many years ago, a Catholic monk in the order of St. Benedict. And what I have learned from there to now is a complete transformation of actually who God is and what he provides and what our actual loving relationship is with the Supreme. And a lot of that is hinged upon the Ishavasya principle and the quota that he has provided within this perfection and completeness that he's provided for us. There's a prayer in the Srimad Bhagavatam in 8.1.10, which also is very similar to this text of the Ishopanishad. You can make a note of that and you can read that out later. Read that to yourself later. But Srila Madhvacharya connects the Ishavasya principle and Prakriti rather beautifully. He explains that Ishavasyam, the words Isha and Avasyam, mean fit to be dwelt in by the Lord, because nothing moves without the presence of the Lord. And you'll notice also in the purport to this mantra, Prabhupada explains the word Jagatyam. Jagatyam means actually in Prakriti. Thus, the meaning, or Srila Madhvacharya, sorry, explains that Jagatyam can also mean in Prakriti. Thus, the meaning is that the whole world, or whatever is within Prakriti, is fit to be dwelt in by the Lord. One should enjoy that which is given, tyaktena, by the Lord, tena. The Brahmananda Purana explains that because the world cannot function on its own, the Lord must dwell within it for it to function. Because he enters Prakriti for it to function, he is also called the Lord of Prakriti. Because the functioning of everything is dependent on him, it is said to belong to him. Ishavastyam, owned and controlled by the Lord. Therefore, enjoy what is given by him, the owner, and do not ask for anything else. I think that puts it rather beautifully. And Srila Prabhupada explains on the Ishavasya principle. If somebody could please read this next slide.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, please, Mataji.
Ishavasya consciousness, the Krishna consciousness movement is so important. If people simply learn this, that everything belongs to Krishna, avasyam idam sarvam. Sarvam means everything, not that. This much is mine, this much is Krishna's. No, sarvam. Ishashavasyam idam sarvam, yat kincha jagatyam jagat, tena tyaktena bunjita, magrida kashyasvidhanam. Simply, we should use as much as he has allotted to us. Then there is peace and prosperity without any difficulty. Otherwise, you go on adjusting to material possessions and time will take away everything. When you die, in due course of time, whatever possessions you have will be finished. That is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, I am death. Krishna is everything, so Krishna is also death. Just like here is a picture of Hiranyakashipu, such a great demon, so proud, he was thinking, I am the proprietor of everything. He was chastising his son, doing whatever he liked. But when Narsimhadev came, within a second, everything was finished. Everything was finished, but Prahalada remained the same. Prahalada is not finished. Hiranyakashipu is finished. So those who are trying to be very big by material possessions, they'll all be finished. But if you remain in the position of Prahalada, you will never be finished. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And that was from a lecture on the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.16.24 given by Srila Prabhupada in Los Angeles in 1974. I'm always very moved when I hear or read something that he's written. As I say, I've been in Krishna consciousness not so many years, but every time I read something that he's written, it feels like he's talking to me. These words are very powerful. He mentions that, I mean, we mentioned earlier, tena tyaktena bunjita, somebody mentioned from the purport there, that one should therefore be intelligent enough to know that except for the Lord, no one is a proprietor of anything. One should accept only those things that are set aside by the Lord as his quota. And I started to read this earlier, then I stopped because it kind of fits better here than where we were talking about before. That the cow, for instance, gives milk, but she does not drink that milk. She eats grass and straw, and her milk is designed for food as food for human beings. Such is the arrangement of the Lord. Thus, we should be satisfied with those things he has kindly set aside for us, and we should also consider to whom those things we possess actually belong. We're talking about, of course, the quota. And there's another important point on this, and that's where we talk about responsibility. There is a standard of life for human beings which cannot apply to animals, Srila Prabhupada comments. The tiger does not eat rice, and this is what I was going to read earlier. The tiger does not eat rice, wheat, or cow's milk because it has been given its quota of foodstuff in the shape of animal food. There are many animals and birds who are either vegetarian or non-vegetarian, but none of them transgress the laws of nature, as they have been ordained by the will of the Lord. Amongst the living beings, whether animals or birds or reptiles, there is strict adherence to the laws of nature, and therefore there is no question of sin for them, nor are the Vedic instructions meant for them. Human life alone then is a life of responsibility. It is also wrong to consider that simply by becoming a vegetarian, one can save himself from transgressing the laws of nature. Vegetables also have a life. One life is meant to feed another living being, and that is the law of nature. One should not be so proud of being a strict vegetarian. The point is to recognize the Supreme Lord. Animals have no developed consciousness to recognize the Lord, but as a human being is sufficiently intelligent to take lessons from Vedic literature and thereby know the laws of nature are working, and he should therefore derive profit out of such knowledge. I won't read the whole of the rest of that purport, but I think it's particularly succinctly put there. And it brings into mind that question of responsibility, and that's the bit I want to come to now. What do you understand? I was going to put you into groups for this. Do you already have preset groups? Okay, so it might take a bit of a while to do that. So let's just have a discussion about it for today. But in the next session, we will be splitting out into groups to do some group work and then feeding it back into the group. So what do we understand by the word responsibility? And what are the qualities of responsibility? What can you say about responsibility in the context of the instructions of the Sri Ishopanishad, with particular reference to the Ishavasya principle? And consider this statement that human life alone is a life of responsibility. How could we understand this statement in terms of corporate, social, moral, or personal responsibility? And let's just discuss how we can apply then the Ishavasya principle in society or in our lives. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to think about that. I'll leave this on the board and I'll come back to you in, say, 3 or 4 minutes. Just have a think. I'd like to see where this discussion goes.
Prabhu, you're muted, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So I have somebody in this class who has the name user. Could I ask who that is, please? Your user profile on this board is user. I don't know who this is. If you could please rename yourself, I'd be grateful.
He's Ravindra Prabhu.
It's Ravindra Prabhu, is it? Okay, can you rename yourself on your...
No, Prabhu, my name is Ravindra. Ravindra.
Oh, okay, all right. Because it doesn't come up like that. So let me see if I can rename you.
I have named it as Ravindra only.
Oh, okay, because it doesn't say that. Anyway, I have done it now, so I know who it is. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So what did we think about with these questions? What did you understand? What do we understand by the word responsibility?
Prabhuji, should I do the whiteboard?
You can do the whiteboard, yes. You're still co-host, aren't you? You can maybe save this. And then start a new one. Well, we're getting some good response on this. I can see hands raised on the board. Okay, so let's go to Ravindra Prabhu. You have your hand raised there.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. First of all, we have to recognize that the Lord is the proprietor.
Yes.
And follow his instructions.
Yes.
And second, we should not envy or covet our position.
Yeah.
We should obey the laws of the God and the Vedic scriptures.
Yeah.
And then we should not get undue attachment for any or aversions. We should also offer all our results to Krishna, like how whatever we eat, we give it as a prasad. We eat it as a prasadam that way. And we should not act whimsically. Actually, we should act according to the direction of Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. You answered all those questions in the most ideal way. Absolutely. Very, very nice explanation. And it's actually what we're being taught to do. Let's go to Krishna Gopa Kumara Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
For the first question, what do you understand by the word responsibility?
Yes.
Humans have the consciousness of utilizing the intelligence.
Yeah.
So we have to use our intelligence as a responsibility. That is our first responsibility.
Yeah.
And next question, what are the qualities for responsibilities? Means we have a higher purpose of intelligence, empowered for spiritual realization.
Okay, just one sec so that Mataji can catch up with your... Okay, carry on. Prabhu?
Humans have the higher purpose, which intelligence empowered for spiritual realization, gain, and progress. And if we misuse the bodily needs committing sin, we will be held responsible for then law come into force.
Good, good, excellent. And then I would like to go to Likita Yalagoda. I'm sorry if I didn't say that right. Please forgive me.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Prabhuji, for the first question, which says, what is responsibility? It's basically a state of being accountable for something. Since we have like a higher consciousness, we're accountable to use it in favor of, to connect back to Krishna.
Yes.
And then the second question said the qualities would be to maintain the trust, And not envy anyone.
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhuji, that's
Okay,
it.
good. Okay.
Hare
And
Krishna.
thank you very much. And then let's go to Murlavandi Muralivan.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dana
Yes.
Prabhuji. Prabhuji, in fact, first three questions are already answered by devotees. I'll
Okay.
concentrate on the last questions where the corporate
Please.
responsibility comes on regarding corporate responsibility and in our real life responsibility. Basically, how we are misusing the whole nature actually by you growing all the tobaccos and cutting all the trees and growing all the seeds and which is meant for the feeding to the animals.
Yeah.
So basically, you're misusing the whole universe for a selfish purpose, for our satisfaction of our tongue and all these things. And also, that's the biggest sin one can do. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. And then Tanuja Umapati Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
For the first question, what do you understand by the word responsibility? It's like accepting things and their results appropriately. That's what I understand. And what are the qualities? Qualities is to use your free will properly and use your intelligence in a appropriate way. Then what can you say about responsibility in the context of instruction? It says you have to follow the Isa, you have to dovetail your activities with the Lord. That is the Ishavasya principle. In service of the Lord, all your activities have to be dovetailed with the Lord. And in the human life alone is a life of responsibility. The moral is you have to be ethical, you should not cross your boundaries. Social means you have to follow the Varnashrama Dharma. Personal, we have to take care of our body, mind, words in relationship to the word of the Lord. And corporate, in sense, we have to not step into another shoe. We have to speak on to our own duties.
Go to our own duties. Good points there, Mataji. Thank you. And I'll go to Vinay Bhushan Nityananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams.
Dandavat Pranams.
Yeah, I would like to answer the fourth question with respect to the how this Ishavasa principle can be applied in our corporate, social, moral, or personal responsibility.
Please, yeah.
Like in the human society, we have this rich and poor discrimination. There are two classes of people prevailing in this society. So if we apply this principle, we will have the people among in the same level. So this Ishavansa principle can be applied in our human society, plus as well as the corporate sector where the bosses are in fact are harassing or their employees for the work. Okay, so that is also where the Ishavansa principle can be applied in our social as well as this society. Okay, bro.
Good. Thank you very much. So when we think about all of these are very good answers, by the way. The big thing that's being actually expounded there or being emphasized in that mantra one, is our abuse or our overuse of quota, where we go beyond actually our quota. And we can see this happening in the practical sense. I live in Sridham, Mayapur. It's a beautiful place, but it's beginning to go from jungle to concrete jungle. Day by day, newer, bigger buildings are coming up. And in the jungle areas where there used to be wonderful flowering plants and, different kinds of wildlife that I saw 5 years ago when I first came here, there are now buildings. Interestingly enough, we had this episode of coronavirus and the world went into meltdown and lockdown. And what happened? The air got cleaner. The birds started singing in the morning. We see wonderful creatures outside, which we haven't seen here for, I'm told, years and years and years. There are fields here where the grass had gone completely burnt and flat and was just, bad land. Wonderful plants have grown there. We're seeing fruits coming to the door every day. Lockdown is brilliant, isn't it? Because you don't have to go to the shop. But fruits and vegetables are coming to the door and they're so beautiful and ripe and tasty. Brother Natswami said in one of his lectures quite recently, nature is pressing the reset button. We have gone too far. I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I believe that all these things happen for a reason. It's like the Lord saying, enough is enough. You guys, come on. I see the Ishavasya principle. I see this at work in what we're experiencing today. And I see this is what happens when we have natural disasters. This is when we neglect that responsibility, when we fail to act on the responsibility that we have been given as stewards of this material planet. So it goes also back to that other question I was asking earlier. Why is there suffering in the world? It's there because we put it there. Children in Africa are starving, not because of something they have done in this lifetime. Maybe it's a karmic reaction from past life, maybe. But the point is that there are food mountains around the world. Like in the EU, they have butter mountains and grain mountains. And year after year, these mountains of food stocks are being destroyed instead of distributed to the poorer nations who could do with this food. In India, here, one of the most beautiful countries in the world I have ever been to in my 53 years. Concrete jungles are happening everywhere. It's becoming like the West. I used to see my mum watching ZTV at home. I'm a Gujarati background, by the way, just so you know. I used to watch her watching ZTV many years ago, and there used to be these, spiritual series like the Mahabharata and this and that, and the Ramayana and that, and everybody was dressed up nicely, chanting mantras and wearing dhotis and kurtas and stuff like this. And when I first joined Krishna consciousness, and I came to Mayapur 5 years ago, this is what it was like. Now I'm seeing devotees wearing jeans and t-shirts because it's lockdown. Huh? You know where I'm going with this. Anyway, I don't want to criticize anybody, but and that's not my intention at all. But something is changing in this material world, and we are not looking after this planet like we should. We're not making proper use of the resources that Krishna has so very kindly, beautifully, lovingly, and wonderfully provided for our use. And that's what the Sri Upanishad teaches us. That's why I did my master's subject in the Sri Upanishad, because I think it's one of the most beautiful scriptures I've ever read. Anyway, I'm going to just summarize there that what I was trying to say basically is that in a society where morality, is devoid of Ishavasya consciousness, there are fundamental flaws. And for that, we do bear a karmic reaction, and there is a price that we have to pay, either today or in the future, or even both. The result, of course, is that our future generations suffer. And they suffer as a result of our current attitudes and behavior. How we behave today, generations after us will learn to behave in the future. And they'll take it one step further, just like we've taken it one step further from where we were. And this is Srila Prabhupada's key message in his Bhaktivedanta purports to the Sri Upanishad. Be careful, don't overstep the mark. And it's very difficult to do for all of us. So many temptations in the way. In this purport to Mantra 1, Srila Prabhupada leaves us with a clear and important message. And he gives invaluable guidance on how to practice these superior principles within the confines of our own lives and within society at large. So anybody got any questions? Because I'd like to close there. I think we covered some good ground. I've got a question. But first, I'll see what. Yes, Murli Vadana Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Vijay.
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
this is regarding Vedic literature. Vedic literature is called as Shruti. But when you talk to younger generation, the present generation, you talk about all these things, they difficult to their digestion. They always ask, can you show original Bhagavad Gita, all these things, So how to answer these questions?
Very good question. Let me throw that back out to the group because I think that's an interesting question. How would we answer younger people when they ask, well, we talk about Shruti, but where's the proof? That's what you're saying essentially. Is that right, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Can I see what other people think about that? Where is the proof? How would we respond to younger people? And it's a really good question, and we need to know, and it's one we actually need to know how to answer. How do we convince people? Ravi Teja Prabhu, go on.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. First, we have to practice. We have to first leave this jungle concrete forest, and we have to go to real forest or real older days. We implement, then they will follow us. It is my understanding. I am also not able to do. And about the corporate responsibility, I wanted to add something.
Okay.
I actually in the Gulf, I sit here, I tell so many things, but preparation of water from the ocean, I do. I am a process engineer and I waste so much current, this all. That cannot be stopped, but usage of water should, from the back end, usage of the water should be very responsible, then the production will reduce. This is back to back. One cannot, all the people has to think and we have to practice to show to our children. Then only it can be done. Simply we are living in Gulf, we are enjoying luxury, we tell to our children they cannot. The practicality we have to bring in our life, then only it can be implemented. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Ravi Teja's answer to your question there, and he answered it in many different ways there, was that we first need to practice what we preach. Then we can actually demonstrate, if we practice what we preach, we can demonstrate to our younger generations, for example, that actually this is real knowledge. But I think one of the things that I would
just 1 minute, I wanted to add something else also.
Go
It's
on,
not
Prabhu.
for hurting anybody. Just here the people are there to fear go back to India. So you are a foreigner, you have prouded India, but we myself also, I fear to go back to India.
You fear
this
to
is
go
our
back to
condition.
India. Wow.
Yeah, I fear because this comforts will not be there, job will not be there, how to eat, how to live. I fear really. I never think before my retirement I cannot go. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's interesting what you say there. I moved to India full time 2.5 years ago. And 5 years ago, I started coming here. I started serving at Mayapur Institute, doing some basic administration service because I wanted to do something, in the Dham. I wanted to do something for my people. I had these big ideas in my head at 48 years old or something, I wasn't after being a great man. I've never desired anything like that. But I wanted to do something for my people. I'm Indian, don't let the voice deceive you. And I grew up in London, and I would never come to India when my parents used to come here before. I was always, no, not going there. I've heard so many, stories about people getting sick and rats drinking things out of temple milks, and all sorts of stories that you hear that, and we don't and stories that we don't understand why, and we never wanted to question why. I was very happy with my jeans and my t-shirt and my roast dinner on a Sunday afternoon and my glass of wine on a Monday evening after work or Friday evening after work to wind down. But then I discovered Krishna consciousness and I came to India. When I first came, I came with a group of boys from Bhaktivedanta Mana. All of them were wearing dhoti kurta tilak and I refused. I said, I'm not wearing this bedsheet thing. I'm happy to, chant my rounds and learn something about Krishna consciousness the way I am. Then I met Radhanath Swami at the temple in Chowpatty. And he said to me, it's okay. He said, you should, feel comfortable. Prabhupada never made us do these things. He said, and then he said something very interesting. He said, but I'm watching you wandering around in your jeans and your t-shirt in the temple and you're sweating buckets. He said, and these other boys you came with, you know, these youngsters of 25 and 26, they're wearing their dhoti and their kurta and they look quite cool. Think about that for a minute. And he said, just think about the practicalities that Krishna has actually put in the way. And forget about these comforts for a minute. And I actually thought, you know, maybe he's got a point. I'm wearing it now. Look, white cloth. Yeah. It's great because it does keep you cooler. Anyway, to go back to your point, Prabhu, about how we explain this to younger people, it is actually a topic I'd like to explore a bit further. And we will do that in future sessions, I think, because there's some really relevant information that we can bring out in the way we preach, that comes out in the Iso Eng, that can be very, very relevant to today's society. So if you'll allow me, we'll come up with an exercise that will help us to explore that topic a bit further within the context of the mantras that we're studying in the Sri Iso Eng. And I hope that we can come up with a sensible solution that we might be able to say, actually, we can take it out there and we can apply the teachings of the Sri Iso Eng, the words in the Sri Iso Eng, and demonstrate to the younger people of today that these Shruti mantras are relevant and they are actually axiomatic, self-evident truths. And that one doesn't need to see an original copy of a Bhagavad Gita because Shruti mantras are actually spoken. Yes? So let's kind of explore that. Would that be okay with you, Prabhu? I've lost you on the screen there. Let's see if I can find you again. Murali Prabhu. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu.
And
Yes,
then we
Prabhu.
will
Thank you,
answer this question a bit more fully. I think it's a really interesting question, and we do. I don't have a sensible answer today, but it's something that I'd like to think about, and I think that we can explore a bit further. Let's go to Rakesh and Priyanka.
Hare Krishna, pranams Prabhuji.
Pranams.
Prabhuji, I wanted to understand a little more about this bifurcation of Vedic knowledge, the Shruti and Smriti. There are so many sections, so if you can give a little bit information.
Okay, so you wanted to understand about these two different broad areas of Vedic knowledge. So actually, have you got your diagram there on page 103?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, so let me see if I can also bring that diagram up. It's actually quite a detailed discussion to have about this. So I'm just wondering whether, would you be happy if I wrote something on this, Mataji, and sent it on the group?
Yes, Prabhuji, that would be fine.
Let me do that then, because it's actually I could go on all day talking about this sort of stuff because it formed part of my theology masters. So let me think about the main key elements of this that will help you to understand this in a much more logical and easier way. And give me a day, and I will send it out to Anand Sheshik and then post it out to you all on the group, so you can all have some more information on how this works. And then once you're ready, if you've got any further questions, I'm happy to explore it.
Noted, Prabhuji. That's absolutely fine.
I think that'd probably be better because this is a big subject, and I couldn't cover this in the last 3 minutes of the class. Okay, anything else anybody would like to comment on? Okay.
Prabhuji, to the previous question, can I add, with your permission, something to the previous question what Muralivadan Prabhuji has asked?
Of course.
Maybe you can correct my understanding.
Yeah.
So it's the faith systems that we take it with us in terms of what Srila Prabhupada has tried to explain us the knowledge and the faith via the disciplinic succession that has been coming from the source of the Lord himself. That's how we can, unless we practice and unless we ascertain them, we will not be able to explain others in terms of why should I trust the scriptures. It'll again become the chicken and the egg issue.
Yeah, well, it's a very fair comment that you make. You may have heard of the old adage, practice what you preach. You heard that saying before, yes. And we are, when we practice spiritual life or spiritual practices, many of us can be guilty of saying something but behaving in a completely different way. And I think your point is a very valid one. If we actually want to make an impact, or we want this spiritual information and knowledge to make an impact to our younger people, we really do have to practice what we preach and be very, very serious in how we do it. And not just so that it's for a big show. You know, it has to be a very, very sincere endeavor. And actually, that is probably the hardest thing that anybody could ever do. You know, because there is no way that we can reach that level of perfection. That's a discussion that comes up within this subject of the Sri Upanishad. When we start talking about who can realize the instructions of the Sri Upanishad, we talk about that in mantras 6, 7, and 8, when we talk about the knowledge and the realization of the Mahabhagavad, for instance. Definitely agree with what you say, and I think we should build this into some exercise that we do going forwards, because I think it will definitely solidify our understanding of the Sri Upanishad. What I would really like to do, actually, at one stage, is there's a room conversation between Srila Prabhupada and Alan Ginsberg, and I think we'll come to that a bit later in the series. I'll pick 2 people and we'll read out the parts, because it's incredibly powerful, and it makes some of these points beautifully. And another thing we will also do is hear what Srila Prabhupada directly has to say in a 4-minute lecture clip on some of these topics that we've discussed today. And I think one more thing is that I'd like, I'm going to think about how we put people into groups. I'll get this, you know, Ananta Shesha Prabhu to help me put some groups together for a future class. And I'd like you to put together a skit, like an audio skit, you know, so you can read the script out on various different topics. I think that will also help us further our understanding and how we can then go out and preach the message of the Sri Upanishad, and how we can demonstrate the validity, the truth, and the knowledge that's being presented in the Shruti mantras and our other scriptures. Does that sound okay to you all?
Okay, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes. Can you tell us the question?
So
OBA.
Your voice is breaking.
He wants to know the OBA questions for this unit, Prabhuji.
Oh, yes. Okay. I'll give you them today. Let me just, I did think about this earlier. On page 107 of your handbook, I'm going to be really kind about this, because this is a really big group, right? There are 60 people in this group. That's an awful lot of OBAs to mark. And I'm already marking, I've already got 3 other units I'm teaching at the moment. And essays are flying out of my desk and on my computer. And you know what? When it's a big group, it's really boring to read the same thing 60 times. So there are 3 questions. You choose. Whatever you want to write of these 3 questions, you choose. That gives me some variety in the marking, and it will give you something to explore. How does that sound?
Great.
Okay,
Prabhuji.
good. Excellent.
Prabhuji, can you, before you wind up, can you share the slide of this one, the one which you had showed about Ishavasya, please? Can you share your slide?
My slide of the Ishavasya.
Or will you be sharing the outlines of the presentation that you presented, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I can do
would
that.
help.
Yeah, I can do that. Yes, so
Thank
I will
you so
share
much.
these. You want me to share these on the group? Yes, Dipal Prabhu?
Yeah. If either you share on the screen or in the group, whatever is comfortable to you.
Okay, so which particular slide were you referring to?
Ishavasya, which you have made the explanation, in-depth explanation you have made about the Ishavasya.
Mantra wise, you can share, Prabhu. Which
Okay.
mantra you are taking, that mantra wise you can share.
Okay, all right. So what I'll do then, I will share the key slides that I've got here, and you can pick and choose whichever ones you like. How's that? Which will help you with your revision. Well, I hope they do anyway. I'm trying to think which slide you might be particularly referring to. That's all.
The Ishavasya slide which you showed in the beginning, the definition and the key points of Ishavasya.
Oh, okay. Ishavasya principle. Let me see. Hang on.
Yeah, yes, that one.
I think this might be the one that you're looking for. Just one sec.
And while you pulled up on your screen, maybe you can also let us know what would be what should we learn for before coming to the next class.
Yes. So for the next session, let's try and get into mantras 2 and 3 because we've got a 2-hour class. We'll do mantras 2 and 3 on Sunday morning. Is that correct? 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. IST, where I am. I don't know what time it is there. What time is it there for you all?
8:30 a.m.
5:30.
8:30. Gosh, it's really early there, isn't it? Okay. Let me just find this current slide. Okay. I think this is the slide you wanted, Prabhuji, yes?
Correct. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Okay, welcome. All right. So I can share more slides and things if any of you want. I'm happy to, if it helps, you're welcome to use. Okay, so on Sunday we'll discuss mantras 2 and 3. And then the lesson after that. Yes?
Just to confirm, out of the 3 questions, we have to do any one question?
Any one you like, you choose, up to you.
Okay, so
you have
this
a
time
choice.
only one.
Only one question, yes, only one. 60 essays is enough to mark. So, because I like to spend a little bit of time on the essays, probably about 30 to 45 minutes an essay I'll spend. If not more. I mean, if they're longer, I'll mark more. So I do tend to also try and put as detailed comments as possible on those essays. So yeah, you choose, and I look forward to seeing what happens. I think that'll make it interesting as well. Okay,
and
so
Prabhuji, would you please take another couple of minutes or 1 minute to just explain your expectations? We have learned from various instructors in terms of how they want us to answer the essays. Some wanted in bullet points, some wanted in form of an introduction, then the body, and then the conclusion. What are your expectations, Prabhuji?
Look, I don't mind. I don't mind how it comes, so long as you are covering the requirements of the question. The ideal way, recommended by the ISKCON Board of Exams, of course, is that there is an introduction, a body to the essay, and some concluding material, and it should all be supported with relevant quotes from either verses and purports or verses and purports. Ideally, you should be restricting your comments or your supporting material to the material that's stated in those purports of the Sri Upanishad. So in other words, if you're writing about the Ishavasya principle and you write a whole essay on a pastime from the Bhagavatam, it doesn't really demonstrate your knowledge of the Isha Upanishad. So this is quite important. I don't mind if you bring in 1 or 2 other points from various other places to support your material, so long as the whole body of your essay is not made up of Bhagavatam or Mahabharata or something else. Let's try and stick to the material that we're learning, so that you can demonstrate, actually, this is what I learned. What I do also want is that if you are struggling with your essay, or you just, sometimes we get a mental block, we just can't see through it or clear through it, call me on WhatsApp, call me. Or Telegram. Yeah, I discovered Telegram the other day. It's good as well. So whatever works for you. If you want to have a discussion about any of the material that you're writing, going to email me, then please do so. Ananta Shesh will put my email address on the group for you. It's Krishna Keshav, which is spelled KRSNA KESAVA @mayapureinstitute.org. This is one of my full-time services here. So you can email me there at any time. And if you want to go over any of the material at all, if there's any questions that you have, or you can WhatsApp me on my UK WhatsApp, which is +44 7590 59 2000. That's +44 7590 59 2000. Ravi Teja Prabhu, yes, your hand is raised.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. This helps.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I will now leave you. And I've got to go to the office now and run the finance department here. So please excuse me. Have a wonderful day. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrindaki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Then pranam.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you. Dandavad pranams.
Thank you. Dandavad pranams.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavad pranams.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavad pranams. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad pranams. This first session of yours, Prabhuji, it never gave a feeling that you're taking for the first time. I don't know, it gave me a feeling that you are there associated with us since a long time.
Thank you. I'm a new boy, the new boy on the block. I'm just trying hard, but
we appreciated it. We enjoyed your session, and we would continue you in nectar of instruction also.
Oh wow! I'm sure Anand Tashesh will have something to say to that. Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Hare Krishna, Dandavad pranam, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavad pranams.
We will answer also in the next session about our Murlivadan and Prabhu's question. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. My opinion has insignificant value, so we accept the answer. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.